is a friend of the new. Throughout our scripture, he says, behold, I make all things new. He speaks of resurrection. Easter Sunday is about renewal, rebirth, revival, resurrection. God is a friend of the new. I have to admit, I stole that line from a Disney movie. In the movie Ratatouille, the movie about a rat who was a tremendous, gifted cook. He is gifted at cooking, but since he is a rat, when he cooks in the kitchen, it is not seen as cooking, it's seen as an infestation, and so this is a bad thing. But at one point in the movie, since this rat is gifted at cooking, this restaurant blooms into a success until finally it is found out that the rat is cooking. And in the movie there is a critic, an old restaurant critic, whose office looks like what do you call it, a casket. It's in the shape of a casket. And the critic is now going to give his judgment. And what he ends up saying is, for those who are critics, our jobs are easy. All we do is cast judgment on what other people work on. We don't contribute to society other than judging what other people's contributions are. And oftentimes, as critics, we often take what we prefer in the old and judge whatever is new based on that. But then finally, he goes out on a limb and says, but the new needs friends. The new needs friends. God is a friend of the new. The new does not mean the young. Old versus new is not old versus young. The new does not mean novel or just right off the block, fresh. The new is something that is of quality, of durability. And when we look at our passage in Scripture, Jesus is speaking about the distinction between the old wineskin and the new wineskin. The old wine and the new. He is not talking about old versus young. He is talking about quality. And so what starts this conversation is that some members of the religious elite say to Jesus, look, your disciples are not fasting. What's wrong with them? Here's what it looked like. So if you're in the time of Jesus, the situation was this. John's disciples are fasting and not drinking. The other Pharisees are fasting and not drinking. So here they are in the sanctuary, looking very pious, not fasting, not drinking, looking very pious. Now Jesus' disciples are in the fellowship hall, laughing, eating, and drinking. And so the perspective was, your disciples aren't looking holy, while we're in here fasting and not drinking, abstaining, looking pious. Why are your disciples not fasting? And Jesus says they don't need to fast. I'm with them. When you fast in the Scripture, the reason you fast is not so that you can feel bad about yourself. The reason you fast is because you have a desire to be nourished by God. You feel an absence of God or an absence of something you desire. And so you fast in order to help you be ready and prepared to have what you desire. In other words, if you truly desire to be filled with God's presence, you no longer eat food. Because what you're saying, you're fasting, and you're saying, I don't want to be nourished by this bagel with salmon and cream cheese this morning. I want to be nourished by the Lord. So you abstain a temporary delight for a greater desire. That's what fasting is about. What Jesus is saying is, why should they fast? I'm with them now. If they fast now, it's silly. Here I am with them. They can enjoy my presence and my teaching. They can enjoy me. And so why should they fast? And then he hits him, because he's doing something different. New wine cannot be put in old wineskin. Before that, he talks about a patch. Right? So if you sow, I know nothing about sowing. But if you sew a patch onto a new patch onto old clothes, I believe the situation is such, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, please do. I believe the situation is such that when you sew something new onto old garments, I believe the new is so tight that when it's sewed, it stretches the old garment down. And so a hole kind of develops, right? Whatever. I got it. Moving on to the next one. The wineskin, I get a little more, right? You have fermented grapes. When grapes are fermented, the growth, it still grows. So it's growing, it's lively, it's active, it's disturbing. Literally, it disturbs, it protrudes, it comes out, it's growing. This image of new wine is a beautiful image of our souls when God makes them new. It's growing, it's active, it's desiring, it's full of life. And so it's stretching out. If you put this new wine into old wineskin, you may fill the old wineskin. But the reason it's called old is not because of its age. It's called old because it's been worn down. It's been used. It's cracked. It's no longer held together. It's not strong enough. So when you pour that new wineskin, just the sheer growth of the fermenting process breaks the old skin, because the old skin wasn't strong enough to hold the newness. It did not need to be hit. It did not need to be hit like a piñata, right? All it needs to do is just pour it, and the newness of the fermenting growth will break the old wine. And all of it will be waste. What he's saying is, if you have new wine, you need to put it in new wine skin. Not young, not fresh, but durable, strong, able to contain and hold and gather together the new life that is bubbling inside. We all have, whether you acknowledge it or know it or not, we all have a ruling thought, a philosophy, a motto, a paradigm, as scientists call it, a business model. We have something that is a general principle that guides all of our lives. And then we have our everyday decisions, our everyday lives. Life's broken up into two things. You have the general principle, and then you have your everyday decisions of your life. Now, our general principle is what helps us make sense and make decisions of everyday choices of our lives. I'll give you an example. You may not know you have this general thought, but we all do. For some, it's hedonism. Hedonism is where you just do what feels good and you avoid what feels bad. That is a general principle of some people's lives. It very much is true. It might be, some of y'all sometimes, I